Welcome to Crossover the Pond, brought to you by 21 Media Productions and Sports Social. He's Drew Lasker, I'm Josh Sexton. This is another episode as we continue our NBA basketball journey, a short hezzy tween and stutter step away here in the boiling hot UK. And yes, Drew, I am complaining. This is too hot for the UK, man. I don't know how you do out there in Texas, but
it's 70 degrees. I need the whole country to calm down because for 9 months, everyone has been complaining about how dark, how wet, how cold, and we get a glimmer of sunshine and everyone's saying it's too hot. There's no AC. This country's never happy.
This country is never happy, but when it's too hot here, Drew, we have like railways buckling and stuff, man. I don't feel like we're far away from that. There's a set of traffic lights down by mine, which is like the main traffic lights that have failed in the sunshine. I don't even know how that happens. But it's like a some sort of crossing in India now with the amount of cars just like driving onto it, thinking it's their right of way and stuff. The UK is falling apart in this weather, but fortunately, even though we're complaining about the weather and all things, as Drew says, we don't have anything to complain about on the basketball front right now. Of course, me and Drew here to analyze that for you as these playoffs continue to heat up, just like the Great British Summer. Because New York, Drew, they did it. We said last week, we were worried from that 22-point lead that Cleveland had that could be the series right there. And it does feel like at this stage of the NBA, you are really operating, of the NBA season, I should say, you really are operating with fine margins. And to me, like if Cleveland would have seen that game one out and stole that one from New York, I could see this going like 6 or 7, in New York's favor still, but see Cleveland pushing them all the way. And yeah, you look at it from there. Cleveland's biggest lead in game 2 was a 6-point lead. Their biggest lead in game 3 was nothing. They never led at any point in that game. And then in game 4, again last night, a 6-point lead as their biggest lead. So Cleveland let go of the rope in that game 1, Drew, and New York just never looked back.
The New York Knicks, how about that? Since 1999, and with the Cleveland Cavaliers, you mentioned it, they were just demoralized and they could just never shake out of that daze as they go off into the offseason. They will be tossing and turning, and there'll be 3 numbers that they just will not be able to unsee, and that is 7-5-2. Those were the numbers remaining in the fourth quarter of game 1, where the Cleveland Cavaliers held a 22-point lead, and I coined it as the debacle. That will be the title of that VT that will run through their heads, because that's when it all went up to shits. Brunson put it on an offensive masterclass, just attacking James Harden time and time again. I was disappointed with Cleveland of not fighting through those screens, Atkinson not calling a timeout, or someone just saying, hell no, this isn't about to happen, but it never happened. And they just could not get over that hump. And meanwhile, New York, they had 9 days rest before that game 1. They were a little bit rusty. That allowed them to shake off the rust, but also get that unwavering confidence that when our back's against the wall, no matter how the game is going, we know now that we can defeat all odds. And so games 2s, 3s, and 4s, it was just never a game, really. And then when it comes to closing the deal, that's what the New York Knicks do. Just like they did with Atlanta, just like they did with the 76ers. Yep. They know how to shut the coffin and stick the nail in there and lock the door. 181 points combined in all 3 closeout games, just stomping the competition. 11-game winning streak, the longest streak since 2013. During this streak, elite offense that we have never seen in the playoffs. And finally, how about your boy Landry Shamet? Like 90% from the 3-point line. That contract's going to look real sexy in the offseason.
Yeah, all that money that people were accusing Jalen Duren of losing, Landry Shamet may have just dived into all that like Scrooge McDuck, diving into the coins, all the extra money. It was lay at the bottom of some pit somewhere like the Monopoly Free Park. And I called it on the last episode, Drew. I said I feel like Mitchell Robinson isn't necessarily needed in this series. I don't feel like you need that overkill really to go with Cleveland because there's so many ways you can kill Cleveland, and especially if you're New York, the amount of offensive weapons you have. And lo and behold, one of the things I said was you can build out that backcourt, you can leave out one of the bigs, you can bring Landry Shamet into the fold a little bit more, and he still, it was only bench minutes really, but I'm looking at game three in particular where Mitchell Robinson only played 9 minutes, Landry Shamet ended up playing nearly 28 minutes as New York went with a kind of tighter rotation for that one. 14 points in that game, 16 points last night, 4 of 4 from 3 point last night. We kept saying, in regards to other teams, Drew, sort of making predictions about who and what would be X factors. I'd said earlier in the season that I think for New York, the shooting leap they took under Mike Brown was something that I was really reassured by. Even when question marks were coming up about them, I was kind of a little bit higher on them because a lot of that was kind of down to just like shooting slumps, really, when I believe that what we'd seen at the start of the season, it wasn't necessarily regression to mean in terms of shooting. It was more like, no, I think they're just, getting used to this and getting used to a different style under Mike Brown, having gone from like, almost the grit and grind that Tom Thibodeau used to play before that. And I feel like so many of these guys have risen to that occasion, like Josh Hart, who like really is, and I know it's obviously the pun on his name, but like he just does feel like he's the heartbeat of this team. That game 2 26-point performance, it was almost like Alex Caruso, like in the way that Alex Caruso has done this a couple of times in the other series where a team kind of disrespects you really, and you just go, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just turn up then. And having gone from being a player that I was a bit worried you could maybe play out of this series if you were Cleveland, worried from New York's point of view, completely and utterly turned up in this series. And you can say it about so many other guys. Mikal Bridges, there were question marks about him earlier in these playoffs. He's stood up and been counted. Karl Anthony Towns, I think there's going to be some seriously, high profile media people writing apology forms to Karl Anthony Towns come the end of this postseason. Whatever happens from here, really. These Knicks have been fantastic, and you almost do that without even saying the name Jalen Brunson. But Jalen Brunson, bona fide superstar. No more debates about that anymore.
This team is equipped with what I've been saying is important all season long. The depth is just incredible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 guys scored last night. 13 out of 14. Incredible. And Shamet outscored everybody on Cleveland's roster except Mitchell. The depth is just incredible. They have many ways they can beat you. Although their superstar is Jalen Brunson, he doesn't have to have a 30-point night or a heroic effort for them to win. Karl Anthony Towns, as you mentioned, he can pick up the scoring slack. You also got Mikal Bridges, who has been playing out of his mind. All of these guys, Josh Hart, they can step up in any time. But when you look at Cleveland, if Mitchell doesn't have a 30 ball, there's nothing else. And what I said on the telecast last night is that the narrative has been Cleveland needs to find a way to defend the Knicks. And I said, I see it the other way around. You're not stopping the Knicks.
Yeah.
They're a juggernaut. They just have too many options. You must continue scoring playing the Knicks. And every single game this series, Cleveland went through a 4-minute, 5-minute drought, and that's when New York they hit the sledgehammer. So you had to keep scoring. You just did not trust that Cleveland could do so. They mixed up the lineup. They brought Max Strus into the starting lineup. It didn't really pay off. He had some early looks. He just didn't knock down. Sam Merrill, again, I thought maybe they should have probably started him. But Wade, as much as he brings you defensively, I mean, he's shooting, very high percentage from the three-point line, but he's only taking like 2 shots a game. He only took 1 shot last night. And then Schroeder didn't play. Once I saw that Schroeder wasn't there, I was like, it's night-night. And, the media has been really hard on James Harden, but we also have to look at James Harden is not LeBron James. LeBron James is an anomaly. We can't expect the 36, 37-year-old James Harden to carry the Cleveland Cavaliers offensively, because there's one thing that was really glaring in this game is that he's lost a step. He doesn't have the ability to create the space to get a clean look. He's always been a heavy dribbler, but he would find that moment, that angle where he can create that space and get that shot off. He just can't get a comfortable look. He can't create the space. I mean, he showed some glimpse of being able to get downhill, but uh, James Harden now he might. I mean, on a winning contending team, in my opinion, he probably needs to look at a 6-man role.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like I've, as you know, Drew, because I've done it on this podcast time and again. I've been a James Harden defender. Really, there is a part of me that wonders whether this like losing of a step is actually just like load from the season, like how much he had to put the Clippers on his back in the early part of the season, how much even at times at the end of the regular season he had to, almost give in like virtuoso performances for Cleveland to ensure they got over the line. Like I don't know what Cleveland thought they were getting. Like I was never necessarily coming on here being like he's a great second option. I thought he was a guy that could take a little bit of responsibility away from Donovan Mitchell, but then there's almost part of me that looks at myself and goes, like, I think you were naive for thinking that because that fit is just not great. Like Donovan Mitchell is not necessarily a plus defender. He maybe is like a net neutral defender, like a break even defender. But to me, he's mainly a minus on defense because you need him to be so good on offense as you alluded to last night. Like just outscoring everybody bar him. That's just never going to win you any level of basketball game. Never mind a playoff game. A guy on the other team's bench outscoring 90% of your guys. And then the things that Donovan Mitchell brings to the court is not necessarily what James Harden's negating for. Like Donovan Mitchell was never a playmaker. It's a good idea to put a playmaker next to him who can maybe help Donovan Mitchell out, but you kind of see in this playoff series, Donovan Mitchell is an ISO scorer really. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to like, stand in the corner and catch and shoot or come off pin downs and come off screens and be moving that way. Yes, there is an ability in his game to do that because he is an elite level offensive player. And yes, James Harden is still, I would say, an elite level playmaker. And you've seen that in his assist totals for a lot of this, this postseason in particular, maybe less so this series. I just think this series was a nightmare matchup for James Harden. It was one that exposed him and all his weaknesses and didn't play into any of his strengths. Donovan Mitchell, I think, got a little bit exposed, albeit like the one thing you could say about Donovan Mitchell is, he never hid during the series. It was one thing I criticised him for in the Toronto series, really, was that there was games where, like, I don't know if he was playing through injury or something, but, like, he just, like, wouldn't put up enough shots. And I was like, this, like, you can't be the star on a team and not put up enough shots. And I don't know, Drew, like, the future for Cleveland suddenly looks murky now. I was struck by the reaction to this Kenny Atkinson quote that's going around that I saw that you tweeted about the other day as well, where he's like, analytically, we've won 2 of the 3 games. Again, Kenny Atkinson is someone I sort of know the work of because he was a player development coach on the Clippers. He's, of course, been the head coach in Brooklyn before as well, failed in Brooklyn as the head coach, succeeded as the Clippers player development coach, so much so that Steve Kerr poached him for Golden State, and then he's worked his way back up to head coach now. I'm kind of looking at Kenny Atkinson and being like, are you just not built to be a head coach? Do you need to go back to where it is just like one-on-one development with players? Because again, I hate to sort of bring it back to Evan Mobley and guys like that. And Jarrett Allen even is someone else who I'll throw under the bus there with Evan Mobley. Like I look at those guys this series and I'm like, you guys didn't develop to the level that you should have done. And now I would say your futures possibly lie outside of Cleveland.
Great point. Yeah, that quote is the type of quote that will get you fired.
Ugh.
And what do we talk about Cleveland all season long? So inconsistent, physically weak. The bigs never quite developed, and maybe that's a reflection on the coach. So although he was a coach of the year last year, I wouldn't be surprised if they look to get a new voice there. And Cleveland fans, you could say, well, we can point at fatigue. Last night's was Cleveland's 100th game this season. But then my argument will be, well, that's your fault. You could have took care of the Raptors in 5 games. You could have avoided that Hail Mary shot in Game 6. You didn't even need to get there if you would have took care of your business on the road and not turned the ball over 40 times in Toronto. So, same thing with Detroit, starting off lackadaisical in that series as well and having a client from behind. The inconsistencies caught up with them, and it's poetic justice because whoever they would have met in the finals, they would have got swept. They would have got waxed by San Antonio or OKC. So the basketball gods did them a favor. And there are some big question marks in Cleveland because James Harden has a player option, which it's only 13.5, so you think he would opt out. you almost like the way his post game presser went last night. It almost sounded like there was a handshake agreement, so I can hear him going on there, just like he said that Daryl Moore is a liar. I can see him saying Kobe, whatever his name, Kobe what? What is his name? The GM there for Cleveland. I could see him coining him a liar this offseason if he
Yeah.
doesn't get what he wants. But then Mitchell as well. Like, is he a number one? I don't think so. So um, Evan Mobley's deal is about to kick in. No one's going to take him on for 60 plus million. So this team has the number one payroll in the league, and they're not even close to being a championship caliber team. The shooters that you supposed to rely on, Merrill, Wade, Strus, they were missing in action. Keon Ellis just never got an opportunity. So yeah, I mean, I saw something on Twitter this morning. Should you blow it up? And I would. I wouldn't pay these guys all this money.
Yeah, and tough again, Drew. Like we mentioned on the last podcast, that we feel like Cleveland should have leaned into a guy like Jalen Tyson. He eventually came into the rotation, didn't really, tear up any trees there. But I believe that he's a development project for them. Nick Tomlin is a guy who had, a good earlier in the season run. Tyrese Proctor, I would throw into that equation as well. Craig Porter Jr. is a player that I like. I've not necessarily seen enough for Cleveland to be like, oh, he's a guy who can come into the rotation next season and you can look to develop. But if they are kind of sticking a little bit with what they have on maybe playing some of those guys on the fringe of things and getting rid of some of these vets that were around the fringe of things, then maybe. But here is where, Drew, I've got a pitch for you. So I feel like I've been trying to sell you on Giannis Antetokounmpo trades as a little spoiler
Yeah.
for the longest time now, and you've not really been entertained by them because you're not really entertained on the idea of buying too high into Giannis. So this is not necessarily a real buy high one. This is like Cleveland knocking on the door, saying to Milwaukee, listen. We don't think any team is going to pay you a ridiculous number of picks for Giannis. So here's what we've got for you.
Yeah.
Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen going to the Milwaukee Bucks, and Miles Turner and Giannis Antetokounmpo coming back to the Cleveland Cavaliers, with the idea that Miles Turner spreads the floor for Giannis, which is what he was meant to do when he went to Milwaukee, albeit that never really succeeded. Cleveland, gets to kind of keep what they've got around, maybe lean into some of those younger guys, and then you've got the two-headed monster in theory that is Giannis and Donovan Mitchell, with James Harden genuinely being able to take a bit more of a backseat to that next season.
On the surface, I like it. The first thing that comes to mind is, would it be clunky with him, Mitchell, and Harden being ball dominant? I like it if you're telling me that Harden's going to accept that 6-man role, come off the bench, be a bench piece for 20, 25 million. I like that. But right now, nothing's off the table if you're Cleveland. That as clunky as it sounds, that has a bigger upside than what they currently have, because I just think with Mobley, that's the best version we're going to see. He just does not look comfortable as a scorer. Even last night when they threw him all series, when they threw him the ball, he would just rush. He doesn't have the patience to size up and doesn't have a go-to move in the mid post. So he's not that secondary scorer. He's very similar to Jalen Duren, where it doesn't look easy on the eyes when he has the ball in his hands. Although, the three ball was falling for him this playoff series. But yeah, I like that idea. I'm sure Cleveland's going to explore that and a lot more. But what they can't do is they can't come back to the season with that same roster.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goes without saying. And, maybe it is a coaching change at the top of that organization. Who knows? Yeah, Kobe Altman was the name you after before, Drew.
Oh man, yeah.
I can definitely see the James Harden fallout in the distance already. I feel bad for James if that was the case. It felt like he did go there on a bit of a promise that they were going to end up paying him. For my money, I still think they should, but everyone on here knows that I've become a bit of a James Harden ardent defender in recent years because of what I saw of his play with the Clippers. But we'll move on from Cleveland. We'll shout out the New York Knicks, who do move on to the finals. They'll be waiting in the wings for whatever happens in the West. And if I'm New York, Drew, I'm hoping that these two teams can continue to kick the living daylights out of each other, because if you're New York, you can afford a little trip to Cancun here possibly. Like I think Spurs Thunder is going 7, so you get your Cancun trip in early, come back rested and refreshed for the series that is due to come next, because unfortunately, injuries are just kind of taking a bit of a hold in this series, Drew. It's the way I think each game has kind of gone now, really, was that the Spurs lose that game two in the game that Dylan Harper goes out with an injury. It feels like, losing another guard for San Antonio with De'Aaron Fox already being out felt like too much of a hammer blow for them to overcome. It's not to do down the adjustments that OKC made because they made some good ones. You could see that Isaiah Hartenstein was I'm going to be nice and say trying to be more physical with Victor Wembanyama as opposed to some of the assault allegations that have been going around. The lot of jersey pulling and things that were going on in that game to it didn't make for great watching. I'll be honest, as someone who wants to see Victor be able to take over a game, it felt like the way they nerfed him was just kind of like almost to kneecap him for the entire thing. OKC go on and win that game three as well, and I thought they looked a bit more free flowing in that. The offense looked a little bit more free flowing really in general. But I look at that game last night and I've got some concerns for OKC now because Jalen Williams still not able to get back on the court. AJ Mitchell going down with that injury in game three as well, so out for game four. And it just looked like OKC didn't have enough offense outside of Shea. And it's like I said before with Donovan Mitchell and the Cleveland Cavaliers, if you've not got anyone outside the main guy and the other team's doing absolutely everything they can to stop the main guy, and bear in mind San Antonio are already an elite defense, so like they're not necessarily struggling really to shut Shea down because they can throw so many different options at him. I'm a little bit worried watching this if I'm an OKC fan because series at 2-2, yes, they're still the higher seed and the home team, but San Antonio's got a lot to deal with the OKC Thunder right now. And yeah, if I'm an OKC fan, I'm scratching my head a little bit at how we win out in this one.
That's the thing. The NBA will expose you very quickly. OKC all season long, the last 2 years look like this was a juggernaut for years to come. And now all of a sudden you're like, do they have enough offense? Do they have enough guys that can create their own shot? Jalen Williams, you're not going to see him anymore. I guarantee you, this is third hamstring this season.
Yep.
Even if they make the finals, AJ Mitchell has a calf. We already know that calves are 10 days minimum, and even more now because they're cautious with the Achilles that it could possibly cause. So you're not going to see him again this series. Now, who can you throw the ball in the hands to that can create their own shot consistently? I'm not so sure. So all of a sudden, this team looks very handicapped while San Antonio looks a lot more deeper offensively than they do. And Chet, he doesn't seem like he can be a secondary scorer offensively at this point of his career. So, yeah, I see San Antonio putting them out their misery because, as you mentioned, this is the thrill in Manila. This is old school boxing where it used to be 15 rounds and both teams got their mouthpiece hanging out of their mouth and which team is going to survive. And it seems like, knock on wood, as long as nothing happens to Wemby, it feels as though the Spurs are going to come out the healthiest because although Fox isn't 100%, they got two other guys that can step up in his place. So, again, the depth that both of these teams have, but, depth only goes so far. You lose two or three guys, and all of a sudden the ship begins to sink. But I just think that, as a fan, I would like to see the Spurs go through because think about this. Oh, that felt so good.
Bless you.
Thank you. Needed that. Look, there are so many storylines behind San Antonio, the New York Knicks. A rematch from the 1999 finals, the last time that the New York Knicks made it to the finals. Also, a rematch from the Cup. Think about how much that will legitimize the Cup if both of these teams make it to the final. And then the storyline of David versus Goliath. Little old Jalen Brunson against the Goliath of Wembanyama. I just love the storylines that will be able to be painted between these two teams. And I'm pretty sure that Adam Silver is right there in his New York penthouse office rubbing his hands together saying, referee crew, make it happen. We need San Antonio to get through.
Yeah, absolutely. I did see Chris Paul stirring more of the pot with something the other night about how like whichever one of these teams is rooting for, it just feels like Chris Paul is rooting against referees and Scott Foster and all these different kinds of things.
Is he talking about Scott Foster still?
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right.
That rivalry continues to go on. I'd be interested to know who Chris Paul does support in this one. By the way, Mark Dagnall's made some really good alterations already throughout the series. Drew, I do expect that San Antonio will come out and still get one of these next three games at the very least. I just think they're too good a team not to really. I can't see that San Antonio goes on to win this 1-6. For example, maybe they could surprise me. De'Aaron Fox being back certainly helps that a lot. I wonder, sort of looking at the rotation for OKC now, whether the guy who may be behind Shea could arguably be even with Jalen Williams around the second best shot creator on this roster. Maybe I'm underestimating Jalen Williams a little bit, but Jared McCain, who had a great game three for OKC,
Yeah.
maybe he's the change that you bring into the starting lineup. Play him alongside Shea in the backcourt. Push Lou Dort to forward because Lou Dort is a guy who can, guard wings. He doesn't necessarily have to be, you sort of quasi guard in this one. Really, he can be someone who can guard some of the bigger guys on the other team, especially when it's a team like the Spurs, who really, Wemby is the main threat of size really on that roster, and otherwise, most guys are sort of between 6'7" and 6'4" maybe. Lou Dort can still guard those guys, but then you've got a guy like Jared McCain who can take the ball out of Shea's hands occasionally, can play make for Shea even a little
Hmm.
bit, but can also put the ball through the basket because that is what OKC desperately needs right now.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I haven't watched this series live. I've been staying up for the Cleveland one, and we kind of I think we mentioned it on air that you're going to stay up and carry the load of San Antonio, and I'll do
Yeah.
that for Cleveland. But I'm definitely going to stay up tonight because I think tonight will be able to tell us a lot about which team is going to close out the series. So I'm going to try to sneak me in a nap and watch this live. Because it's never the same as when you go back the next day and watch clips, or even if you go back and watch it as live, it's never the same watching it in the moment. So really looking forward to diving into this. And yeah, you're right about McCain. We know what he could do from a shooting standpoint, his ability to attack as well is kind of underrated as well. He has a quick first step, can get into the paint. We saw that incredible finish that he had over Wemby in game
Mm.
number 3. So he definitely has the tools, but I'm really looking to see what Shea's intent is because they're going to need a big night out of him. They're going to need MVP performance, similar to how what Donovan Mitchell tried to do last night, coming out really, really aggressive in that game. So I look for the same out of him as well.
Yeah, and then on the San Antonio side, I almost don't know what more like really needs to change. I feel like San Antonio are just doing enough to keep OKC at bay really in this series, and as I say that fully acknowledging that it's a 2-2 series at the moment and that they don't have home court advantage for the rest of the series here. But I feel like everybody who I was expecting to perform at this stage is kind of performing to the level that they can perform to. Like I think De'Aaron Fox will only grow into the series from here on out. It doesn't seem like he's sort of done the light dimmed the shine, I should say, of guys like Stephon Castle or anyone like that. I know Dylan Harper's gone to the bench now, but Dylan Harper is clearly still playing through something, so maybe it actually benefits him to come off the bench. We've still seen like guys like Keldon Johnson not being afraid to put their shots up there and stuff. Devin Vassell, I think, has been great throughout this whole series for San Antonio. He's been a real X factor for them. Julian Champagny has a quiet night in game 4, but can still turn up to the moment at any stage. And then I just feel like, we're going to come back to it time and again, Drew, in the same way that we kind of did with the Knicks, where like we praise everyone on the Knicks and it comes back to Jalen Brunson and his level of play ultimately. But, it almost doesn't matter as long as every other guy gives you like a 6 or 7 out of 10 performance across the court. Wemby is probably going to give you like an 8 or 9 just because he is that freakish. He is that good with the basketball. I feel like every time I bring the freak thing into it, it's almost like I'm doing down his technical ability because his technical ability is ridiculous for his size as well. Ridiculous in general, even if you disregard his size. If he was a 6 foot guard, we'd still be talking about how good Wemby is at basketball. So this team looks formidable right now. And I mentioned it before, if I'm an OKC fan, I'm worried. But if I'm a San Antonio fan, not only am I excited for like what the next 3 games might look like and what the finals matchup with New York looks like, I'm so excited for the future of this franchise because yes, there may be apron things that come into play and CBA things that come into play down the line, which means you have to break things up a little bit more. But I promise you, if you win and you make guys enjoy playing the basketball as much as it looks like San Antonio enjoy playing basketball, especially against the OKC Thunder, you might get some guys taking more team friendly deals just to stick around and win with this core.
That's a great point. They might look at what New York, what Bronson did, to be able to create that flexibility for that
Yeah.
roster. I mean, don't even be surprised if Wembyamba looks at taking just a little bit less. And the thing with the most dangerous thing with San Antonio is really, this is if they make it out. They're playing with house money because none of these guys are up for extensions. I think Wemby has one more year. Obviously, Harper's a rookie, and
Castle
Castle.
like 2, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're in a great position with flexibility. If they want to dangle Fox, they're not forced to. He's the only one, him and Vassell, the only two really making real money. So if they match up against New York, it will be intriguing because there's no real pressure on San Antonio. It doesn't have to get done right now, whereas New York, you almost feel like the time is now because I don't see Brunson. He's going to want to look to break the bank on this next go around. And that team is going to get expensive as it already is. And yeah, you got to love the future that San Antonio has. And then more importantly, you got to love the mentality that your superstar has. I just love everything. Every time Wemby opens his mouth, he is bringing competitiveness back. He's bringing nastiness back. He's bringing all those things of why I fell in love with the game in the 90s back into the fray. And guys are going to be forced to either keep up or get left behind. But yeah, I think whichever one of these teams are going to decide to take care of business, you don't want it to go into 7 because you want to get as much rest as possible. If you take care of it in 6, you got less than a week because game 6 is Thursday night. The finals kicks off the following Wednesday, so you're in great shape specifically for someone like the Spurs. When you look at Harper, whatever he's dealing with, when you look at Fox's ankle, for the OKC Thunder, I think this is who you have. I do not see Williams coming back at all. AJ Mitchell could be back for the finals because it's a calf, but yeah, if you're San Antonio, you want to go ahead and close this thing out.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it remains to be seen who will go on and close this one out next time me and Drew record. We will know who our finals
Indeed.
opponents are. We know that the New York Knicks are there, but will it be San Antonio or will it be Oklahoma City who joins them in the finals? Join us again next week to find that out, to find out our thoughts and feelings about everything. Drew, I can't believe we made it to this stage, considering when we first started this at the start of the season, how long away this felt to be at the stage of the finals, considering the teams that we were talking about. And these 3 teams, referring to New York, San Antonio and OKC, were teams that we were always pretty high on. San Antonio trajected the right way throughout the season, of course, but we thought that OKC and New York would be in these situations now. But here we are all these months later. The prophecy is coming true so far. So really intrigued to see what happens when we are back in the hot seat next week. New York there already, waiting in the wings as these 2 teams continue to slobber knocker each other. But yeah, me and Drew will be here next week to analyse more of that ahead of that NBA Finals, as Drew says, starting on Wednesday next week. So all that's left for me to do is to say, Drew, lead us out.
Production meeting live here. We will look to record on Tuesday to get ahead of Wednesday's opening for the finals. And you never know, we might come on here for 10, 15 minutes and talk about every single game. That would be cool. So yeah, you guys, as you've been doing all season long, just do me a favor. Just go hit subscribe. Go drop a comment. Share a friend. Share our podcast with a friend. It's been a lot of fun just sharing the goodness to you guys and showing our passion for the NBA. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the ride this season. Like you mentioned, Josh, this thing has flown by. Like, I can't believe we're already here. I can't believe last night I started to see the cursive of the finals. It's just that font that they have, it just pops off the screen, and really looking forward to it, man. It's been a pleasure. We're going to keep this thing moving, and we will see you guys next week in the lead up for the NBA Finals. Until then, enjoy Game 5, Game 6, and maybe even get Game 7. See you guys next week.